longer a child is born. Mother shed tears of joy as baby tests his lungs. But daddy's not there where he ought to be. So when in Georgia, skinning and shooting craps on his knees, another victim born out here in the hood. And based on statistics, it really ain't all good. Welfare takes the tab, and daddy can't sign, and it can't be seen. The family becomes a crime. The hunt is on, and brothers.
Greetings. You are tuned in to Kim T Visions, and my name is Jalissa. Before we get started, I'd like to make a few announcements. We have the second annual Holistic Health Conference coming up, celebrating the rebirth of your mind, body, and spirit. It's hosted by the African Americans for Balanced Health and Black Americans Against Cancer. This event is taking place on October 7th from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. at Sacramento City College, 3835 Freeport Boulevard, Sacramento, California. The next announcement is the African Thought Group presents Aishah and Maria Kwesi, coming October 14, 2000. They're going to be at the Black Repertory Theater, 3201 Adeline Street in Berkeley, California. You don't want to miss this because I've seen them before and they are some powerful speakers. The next person is Dr. Adam Hochschild. He's going to be at Contra Costa College on Friday, October 27th. And this is the author of King Leopold's Ghost, and he is going to be giving information about the destruction of the Congo. The next announcement that I have is what our topic is concerning today. The Bay Area MAAFA West Planning Committee is here with us today, and I'd like to start to my left introducing our guests. They'll introduce themselves.
Yes, my name is Lezell Williams. I'm a minister at Wosay Community Church in Oakland. I'm also a teacher in the city of Richmond.
My name is Wanda, Sabir. I'm West Oakland resident, San Francisco Bayview newspaper columnist and English professor at Contra Costa College.
My name is Donald Paul Miller. I'm a chaplain at Alameda County Medical Center, and I'm minister at Allen Temple Baptist Church.
Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Hadiah McLeod. I'm a member of MAAFA Planning Committee. I'm also a teacher here in the district, West Contra Costa Unified School District, mother and grandmother.
Greetings, my name is Aishah. I'm a mother of two. I'm a student at UC Berkeley, and I'm affiliated with City Center Dance Theater in Oakland.
The Bay Area MAAFA West Planning Committee is going to have their next event on Saturday, October 7th, 2000, from 7 p.m. until 10 p.m. And first, I would like to ask, the first question is, how did MAAFA West get started? And anyone can take this question.
Yes, well, the MAAFA West got started as the Black African Holocaust group, and we started with an idea in 1993. I was at a conference on infant mortality, and they had a libation out at Santa Barbara's beach, and a lady out there mentioned that they had a MAAFA, well, Black African Holocaust out there, and that someone in northern California should start one. So I had that idea, and from there, and came up to Wanda, Sabir. You teach a man and you taught an individual. You teach a woman and you taught a nation. So when I had that idea, I said, well, I'll bring that to Wanda, Sabir, and we worked it together, and that's how we came up with the Black African Holocaust in 1995?
Right.
Yes, 1995.
Yeah, actually, Donald and I, we've done some programs together. He's participating in some that I put on, like at the West Oakland Branch Library. We were on our 10th annual African American Celebrations in Poetry this past February. And Donald, he's a poet also, so he participated in that. And then we started having the Jubilee, which is a celebration of the emancipation of the Africans that were, enslaved, and that was January 1st. And basically that particular celebration, it rotated throughout the community. And at one time, Allen Temple, where Donald was a minister, hosted it for us in a recreation room there. And so he knew me throughout the years as putting on these events for African people of the African diaspora. We had a holiday a celebration called the Celebration of Love, and I have a business called Word Tour Production, promoting literacy through the arts, and I like, celebrating our cultural legacy. And so when Donald said we should have a Black African Holocaust, I said, okay, cool. What do we do? How do we do it? So anyway, that was really great and really wonderful. That idea, and her daughter came, I think, during year 3, and said, "Oh, we got to make this bigger. There are not enough people here. We need to get the word out." And so that's how we have a committee now. And last year was just fabulous. It was so big, hundreds of people. And so this year we're doing it different. We have a pre-MAAFA on October 7th in the evening at the Alice Arts Center, and then we're going to have the MAAFA going to the water at Ocean Beach on the 8th. So it's getting bigger and bigger as the years go on.
Can someone tell me what the MAAFA actually is?
Yeah, I can take that one up. MAAFA is a term that the Africans talking about us decided to associate with our with the slave trade, the Middle Passage. And the term came about in New York. They've been doing the MAAFA there for about 6 years now. And so we decided, when I came, we decided to, instead of calling it the Black Holocaust, let's keep it in conjunction with the what they do in New York, and decided to call it MAAFA here. And let me just read what MAAFA means. MAAFA is a Swahili term for disaster, calamity, or great or horrific or terrible occurrence. This term has been used to describe the transatlantic slave trade, and that's what we're talking about. People of African, well, no, I don't need to go into that. I was going to read the flyer, but that's not necessary.
Have you ever been to any events like this before?
Well, I went to the one in New York just this past year. It was really, really quite nice. It was given at St. Paul's Baptist Church. Reverend Youngblood is the minister there. And they do a week worth of workshops and speakers. And they also go out to the beach. And it is really quite wonderful. There's lots and lots of people. Close to 1,000 people attend the one in New York. It's just hard to describe the feeling that you get going there. It was really wonderful. It was worth me going. And here I have, this is a flyer from New York for 1997. And this one is from 1990, I shouldn't say 1990, this is 1998, and then this one is 1999. I'd like to just take a moment to read one of the poems that was put on this. And it's something I've always wondered about, and I know probably a lot of African people have. Why do I love the ocean? This is a poem. At dusk, I see reflective smiles of ancestors. The rest of the day they hide. At dusk, black skeletons walk with the red tide, shouting their rights, eulogizing themselves out of nature's flood. Why do I love the ocean? It's not really water. In truth, it's my blood. Really powerful poem. And the picture depicts what most of us feel. If you can see the skeleton in his mouth and he's screaming. It was one horrible occurrence. I don't think there's anything happened in history that can have that same magnitude. We as African people are still in pain. We're still suffering now because of MAAFA.
Yes.
Well, okay, all this has happened in history, but it's 2000. So why should we really care about this? We have come a long ways since the MAAFA has happened. We're all sitting here today. There's many people that are going to be watching this program that are doing well for themselves. And so why should we look back to this? Why should we care?
Could I answer that? I think what we're really dealing with is African culture, okay? There's a part of our culture, the culture about the tradition that talks about Sankofa. Sankofa means as you move forward, don't forget your past. It's painful. The MAAFA is painful, but it's something that we need to understand, to accept, to recognize so we can move on. We cannot grow with having a lot of pain in us unless we recognize the pain, get remedy for the pain, so we can move forward in our lives.
And let me just also mention that they have a saying in New York, and it's the saying that just goes throughout the whole conference. The way out is the way back through. In other words, we go back through, remember what has happened, experience it, and that has an effect of healing. If you've ever been to the slave castles in Africa, any part, it's hard to explain, it's hard to put it in words, but once you go, you can finally release the tension, the pain, the suffering that you've gone through. So we as African people must connect with our past in order to heal ourselves, because we are still suffering to this day because of the tragedies that happened during the Middle Passage.
And one thing I'd like to add, a lot of our people are still in denial about, in other words, if you deny pain and you've had traumatic pain, if you deny that, you become ill. Mm-hmm. There's an illness that goes with it. I think it's called schizophrenia. But anyway, there is a mental illness that will hold on to you unless you recognize the pain that you've been through and get some remedy for it. So what we're trying to do in MAAFA is to try to help our people move forward by recognizing the pain that we've gone through as a race.
So can you describe to me what is some of the pain? Because I'm not hurt right now.
I know.
You know, I don't feel, my body is fine.
Okay.
You know, so what is this hurt that you're talking about? What is this suffering that has been described?
I can answer that my way, then maybe, Wanda,
Right.
we all can answer it in our own way. There is a book that, it's here, and it's called The Black Holocaust. I've never been able to look at that book because of the pictures are so graphic. I didn't watch the movie Roots because of the pain I associated with the slave trade. You don't have to be hurting to have pain, and just the memories bring about pain. If you are into your culture and realizing the things that we went through as a people as a result of the slave trade, that's pain. That's painful. And once I went to Africa, went through the slave ships. I went to MAAFA in New York. I cried and got a lot of the pain out. Now I can pick that book up and look at it. Before I couldn't look at it. It was too painful. I mean, I could feel the pain in my body looking at the pictures of the woman with her tongue being stretched out by the root of her mouth and her belly cut open and the baby's hanging. I couldn't look at that before now, but I can look at that. That's pain. You don't have to be someone doesn't have to do that to you for you to feel that sister's pain when it happened. To have your tongue lashed out with a hook and you hanging up on a slave ship by your tongue and seeing a woman's belly cut open. You don't have to feel that physically in order to relate to that pain. That's the kind of pain we're talking about. Those of us who are here, still alive, that's a part of us. We can never forget that. We feel that. Those are our people. We feel that.
And I'm sorry.
But the American way, the reason why so many young people and so many older people, especially from the 50s, don't feel the pain that you say, is because the American way is to not deal with emotions. And so and not to deal with spirituality and not to deal with the inner person. The American way is to be logical and rational. And why are you crying because 100 million people died? You didn't know none of them. So the problem with America is that, especially a lot of Africans who become Americans, is that they don't go back like the Sankofa and look where we came from. They just say, this is the American way. So our kids are suffering spiritually,
Exactly.
and it's a spiritual schizophrenia because what they don't know why they should be grieving. And a lot of our kids are grieving inside and don't know that they should go back to the point where someone sold their ancestors into slavery, and on their way over here, they dropped them over, they jumped over. Why am I suffering? And I don't know why, because you don't know your history.
Exactly.
You don't know that one of those 100 million people who died was one of your kinfolks, and you don't deal with that emotionally because the white man, and that's just his nature, has taught us how to be Americans and not to relate to our culture. So when a high yellow person who think, from where I come from, the high yellow person don't even think black. I couldn't even get into their community because I'm too black, you know, because they don't feel that that person who jumped over was a part. The worst thing that I've seen is, you know, it was the Amistad, when a woman took the baby and she fell overboard backwards. Well, when I was in Santa Barbara doing the conference that caused us to do this, we was dealing with infant mortality. You know how babies are dying at an early age, and to look at that incident in 1993, and then to flashback on something like that, I said, oh, we got to. If we don't remember our past, we're going to forget all these babies that's dying right now.
Yeah, that's
and it's
right.
still suffering, grieving, angry with God, angry with the God of this America, the white man, you know.
Yes.
So that's why I think that the feeling it hurts so deep for me. And being a reverend and Amistad, when the lead person took that knife and stuck in that white guy and pulled it out, it made me cry inside, because that's something I wanted to do, but I just couldn't do it. And it expressed how I feel, but you know, I can't think that way. But there's a lot of people who can't think that way, and because they've been Americanized, what they do is that they go outside on the block and they shoot their neighbor because they can't take it out on a white man.
That's right.
Guy told me the white man did this and the white man did that, and he stole my weed eater, because he had to take it out on somebody. You know, so I think that the hurt that we feel is so emotional, it's so spiritual, but the white man has lost his spirituality, and because you are American,
But did the white man ever have spirituality?
That's the
Well,
key.
I don't know.
But that's
That
not the
might,
issue.
yeah,
That's
that
not the
might not
issue.
be
No,
the
it's
issue.
not.
We don't
That's not
want
the
to
issue.
focus
No,
on that.
no.
Right.
MAAFA is totally, completely about Africans, and no matter where you are, so that is the focus, not on anything and anybody else, just us and what happened to us and through the Middle Passage up to now.
But
And the
I
other-
want to finish my point about the white man has lost his spirituality and caused us to want to be Americans, and we're losing our spirituality because we're not. How could the president of the NAACP be a Republican? Because he's an American, and that's the American way. It doesn't faze him what nappy-head people like us go through. Because the American way is to not deal with spirituality, but deal with materialism, and all that you get. The objective of Americanism is to get all you can get, and at the end of it, you don't care about your past. So
I'd like to go back for a minute to this. I'm
Aisha
sorry.
wanted to say
Aisha.
something, and then I had a comment.
I just wanted to say, for me, if you can imagine taking a trip, and this room, we go on a trip, and halfway to reach our destination, 5 of us die, and it's only 2 of us left. And we get to this new land that we've never been to before. How is that going to make you feel as a human being? That 5 of the people that you left your trip with are not there any longer. And this is 100 million of our ancestors who died that way. Not to mention what happened once we got over here. I think that what's so terrible about this is that it broke our spirit, African spirit. And right now you say, how is it relevant to us today? Well, we can look and see that we're still walking around with this broken spirit. And the purpose of the MAAFA is remembrance. And when you remember, you make that spirit whole again. And my definition of healing is to work collectively. And you can see the world we live in today, we're definitely not working collectively, we're working against one another. So remembrance will help us do that, when we don't have to think about shooting each other up, and the drinking and the drugs and the alcohol and the black folks who would put you in jail before a white man. Remembrance is what this is all about. When you remember your past, and you can go ahead and move on into the future.
And that goes back to the statement, the way out is back through. The way out is back through.
Yeah, I wanted to mention that we're going to actually be showing Sankofa at the West Oakland Branch Library this Thursday, October 5th, from 6 to 8. And the West Oakland Branch Library is at 1801 Adeline, right across from DeFermi Park, which is where the Black Panther Party started. And it's free, and everyone's invited.
Can you tell us the significance of the movie Sankofa?
Well, I can let someone else answer that, but I wanted to talk about, back to your question, which is really a very good one, about why should we care? And I was thinking, I read in the Jet that black people are dying from racism in this country. We're having more heart attacks, more incidents of cancer, just because it's really traumatic and it's really stressful to live in a society that hates you, that's structured under a system. The Constitution is not for us, that hates you. In the Constitution, we're still not whole, we're not human beings. only 3/5. They haven't changed anything. They just legislated, Amendment 14, 15, and 16, but that didn't change the language. Clinton apologized for slavery, but that he didn't give us any reparations. So, it's really
that's
stressful being black in America. It's stressful being
Exactly.
black in the world because Western culture dominates, all of these different systems.
Yes.
So we come together and we love each other, and then we remember these things. I mean, the Jewish people remember their Holocaust. That's why we were so anxious, so readily got rid of that word, because people say Holocaust. You look it up in the dictionary. Holocaust means Jewish.
Right.
That's not what the word means, but
Doesn't
that's what it
affect
means.
us,
So MAAFA is our word, and we have to remember our history, even the painful stuff, so that we can get through it and determine our own destiny, which is not happening presently.
So we'll never forget. We must not ever forget. We must not ever forget.
The movie Sankofa, I think, can be summarized in the first part of the movie. The star of the show, I forget the young lady's name. Anyway, she tried everything except herself. And one of the ancestors came to her and said, "Return to your past. Return to your past." In other words, we as a race of people have been so psychologically damaged that we hate ourselves. We are dead spiritually. We have lost the greatest civilization that has ever lived. There's record of that right now, and we've lost that. So our responsibility, our challenge, is to return to our past and get those principles. Not return back to Africa physically, but get those spiritual principles that were the foundation of this whole world, and return to that.
I'd like to just say one thing, and I'm bouncing off of what Lezell said, and I think it's something important. And us as a group, we have to start remembering this too. When you say we have to say some, because a lot of us do remember. A lot of us will never forget. A lot of us are united, and so we have to start saying that and stop saying African people are not united. African people are not this. African people are not that, because we cannot say that anymore, because there are lots of us that are conscious, because we're doing this. They're doing it in New York. They're doing it in Philadelphia. They're doing one even in Chicago at the Great Lake.
In Los Angeles.
They're doing one in LA. So we can't say no, African people are not organized. We are all Americanized, because we're not. Look at my hair. I know this ain't no Americanized.
Can I ask you something? Did you always remember?
Did I myself, I think I was born a revolutionary. I think I was born a warrior. When I was a little girl, I used to wonder, so myself, I think I always knew. Some of us come into this world knowing and remembering, and that's the thing. We all have to remember.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes we're blessed with parents who don't let you forget. I was raised by a father. I'm from New Orleans, and my family's from New Orleans in Mississippi. And my father had to leave New Orleans because he just couldn't stand those white-only and color-only signs, and not being able to golf because they didn't let black men in there unless they were caddies. And he wouldn't let me have. He didn't like Catholicism because he says too many white people standing around, statues. And he wouldn't let me have a doll until they started making black dolls. I never, it's really something how a lot of people say I used to wish I was white.
Yeah.
And I was born in 1958, so I came up in the 60s. As a teenager. Was I a teenager in the 60s? Well, more like the 70s, I was a teenager. But anyway, I never wanted to be white. I never wanted straight hair. I never wanted a perm.
Neither did I.
Well, what about the people that do? Because right now, if you look around in the media and on the videos that young people are watching, what they're dealing with is blue eyes is beautiful. Let me get contacts. Let me perm my hair. Bees. I'm talking about. Women are referred to as a bee. And
not bees, bitch. I mean, that's what it is.
And that's exactly what it is. And so
You can't say bitch?
that's what they're referred to. And so. And I've talked to young people, I have talked personally to young people who have no problem with this. And it's getting to the point now where it's being made into a feminist thing, that this is a woman, that this is what I am.
Like reclaiming it.
Yeah, trying to reclaim it. That's the same thing that people have done with nigga. But what I want to bring back is, how does that relate to remembering your past? Because this is what's manifesting now. So how can we work with that to remembering your past in the MAAFA.
Can I comment on that? I think something that she said earlier, we are here at this time and place in this country for a reason. And that reason has something to do with our connection to our past, our spirituality, our connection to the earth, our connection to God. What she said is absolutely true. There are a lot of our people have been lost for various reasons, but we are here for a reason. We are here to bring back the ways of our ancestors. That's our responsibility. We can't look at the large numbers and say, that the case is lost. Our responsibility is that where we are at this time and place on this earth is to bring back something called MAAFA, truth, justice, righteousness, propriety, and balance, which was the formula for our ancestors. Bring that back, first of all, to our lives. All the young people are not lost. We were talking earlier about the hip-hop culture. There's a positive aspect of hip-hop culture that seeks to take us back to those principles.
This is true.
So what we need to do basically is try to increase that number, and I think the MAAFA commemoration is about that, about bringing more and more of our people together in one setting, sharing, crying, yes, and planning. Planning
And
for our remembering and planning for our future. Self-determination is a principle that has gone back for thousands of years, and it's still here. And we need to learn to practice that, bring it forward in our lives today.
And with MAAFA, we are trying to reach as many people as we can, and hopefully the youth will pick it up. We as an adults are responsible for what's going on in our community, even though it's not happening to us directly. But what happens to one happens to all of us. Just like you put a pebble in a lake or ocean, and those ripples are going to go on and go on and go on and go on. It's the same thing in our community. Our youth are killing themselves. Just a lot of things are happening. Well, we as an adults, we have to some kind of way figure a way to do something to stop it. And this is one of the ways we're using MAAFA to do that. We're trying to spread MAAFA to remember. We must remember our past. We must remember the pain and suffering that we went through the Middle Passage. We cannot forget that.
Even in my field, Jesus said, "I came to save the lost sheep of the tribe of Israel." He wanted to save his people. Well, Paul said, "I wish that above all that Israel was saved." Well, African Americans, Africans that's living in America, we want to make sure that our people are saved from the chaos of what can happen if they go to the other side.
Sure.
When you look at what happens to people who straighten their hair and go the American way, if you look at the newscast, if they're not institutionalized, they won't be on there. A young lady lost her job maybe about 10 years ago because she wore braids the first time. Well, we have to let our people know that, we want them to be saved. We want them to be whole. We want them to be able to be emotional, spiritual, intellectual, social, and, love each other, but maybe not like what everybody do. I love everybody, but I don't like when somebody comes and say, well, we're going to take your children and not give them the proper education. Well, that's because they don't want us, they don't want us to achieve that goal. Or what we're going to do is we're going to make sure that the standards for graduation out of college are so high that you can't even get, inside it because you won't get a 4.1. So I think that it's for us to save our people, for the adults to say, well, we're going to pave a way.
Yes.
And I think it's very important for us to do that. And if you have to be emotional, if you have to be radical, if you have to be rebellious, do all of that in the spirit of love to help save our children.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that I don't know, a lot of our people don't believe that we have institutions in our community. That black people don't have things that we've been doing for a long time, and I like actually remembering those things that our ancestors, not necessarily the ones that that were lost in the Middle Passage, but those that made it, our ancestors here in America that, they celebrated the emancipation, on January 1st. But we don't do that anymore, and then the other ancestors started the Juneteenth because that was when they found out that, they were emancipated. But we don't, I think they still do it in Texas where it has more meaning, but we don't do the January 1st, which is where it all started. And then the MAAFA is actually something that, we should be doing because we shouldn't forget, but in this country it's like, well, it happened that many years ago. We've only been free like 150 years, since 1865, and that's not a long time. And we don't have any land, and we don't have our own institution. Every time we had like a city, the government
Why
took
not?
it back from us
Why not? Why don't we have anything right now?
because this particular paradigm that we're involved, that we live in, this system doesn't want us to have anything.
Could I
They
add
want us to
that?
assimilate and become a part of the whole.
A part of the discipline that I was talking about earlier that we must have is to use what we do have. I work in South Richmond, the so-called poor community. But if you see the kind of clothing, the kind of cars, the kind of everything that our people are wearing and driving, you can't say that these people are in poverty. The problem is that we're not using what we do have in a way that brings about a certain level of discipline and uplifting for the entire group. We have lost the sense of collectivism, and we've gone to individualism. So that's a part of that spiritual trauma that we were talking about earlier. When you hate yourself, when you are so psychologically damaged until you want to kill somebody or you want to destroy yourself. That kind of thing. So what we need to get back to, and I think that the small groups all around the country, and especially in Richmond, is to begin to come together and to bring our people together and share information and get back on track in terms of our culture.
And we talk a lot about the problems in the community and what's going on. So why is it important to have African-centered education?
Because we live in an anti-African world. That's the reality, is that the educational system in this country believes in the inferiority of African students and people. That's just real.
Aishah?
And I think that also the African students believe in their own inferiority, and I think it's not so much as somebody taking anything away from us.
Right.
It's important to have African history, African education, because we need to define our own role in this world. This is my land.
That's right.
These people here, the people that died, the people that built this country, I call America mine because my ancestors built it for me to be here. But our African children aren't taught that. They believe that they're living in somebody else's world. I think things like this are about empowerment. White kids are taught to empower themselves. They can look out in the world and know that they can go build something, they can start their own business. Who teaches black kids that?
That's right.
And if you had this background that this is your land, that your ancestors died for you, then you can go out there and say, look, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. You're not going to give me anything. I'm going to take it from you because I deserve it.
Right.
So it's about defining your own history and not worrying about nobody else. God put me here, and so this is mine. And so I think that the MAAFA is important in that term. And I think somebody asked me the other day, why do we have to do this every year? And that was an interesting question to me. But if you look at it, you look around us, we have celebrations of the death of people, Memorial Day, Veterans Day,
Columbus Day.
Columbus Day, they're honoring these people who have died. I think that we should be able to, and we are,
That's
do
right.
the same thing for ourselves.
You know, and how dare someone ask you, why do we do it every year? How long have they been celebrating Columbus? Columbus didn't discover America. The Indians were already here, but they discovered, oh man, I'm getting ready to go off. They want us to celebrate it, so why can't we commemorate over 100 million Africans lost their lives? So if we celebrate 1 year for 100 million years, it still will not be enough for the suffering that we have gone through as a people. So the person who said that is still ignorant for, was it an African? Well, do you see? An African can say that. Why do we have to do it every year? What kind of mentality would it take for an African person to ask us, why are we celebrating this every year?
Where do you think that mentality comes from? Because I don't know if anyone else have heard of it, but the Willie Lynch letter is key in all this. And can someone please expound on what the Willie Lynch letter actually did and what it was about?
Yeah, I remember that. That was the one. That was the letter where I guess the slave owners were talking about how to divide us and how to train the slaves, so that
it
we
was
didn't.
a workship. It was the first workshop for white folks.
He went around the country doing
And what happened with this is that through divide and conquer, by saying, okay, we favor you and we'll let you oversee these people over here, it made us not trust each other. So whenever, for instance, that's how a lot of times when a black person is in charge of something, another black person won't want to go to that person. They'll go to a white person that's around that person just to make sure that this person really knows what they're doing. it happens in medicine. You know, when a person goes into the hospital and say, well, I don't want a black person to touch me. I want a white surgeon, or you know, just thinking that we are inferior.
And so we realized that, and we realized that this is how it started. That it was a setup. Basically, we were set up in this situation. So now the beginning is remembering the past and the MAAFA. But
The way out is back through.
Exactly. So, but are we living in the past
No.
by doing this?
No. What we're doing is recognizing recognizing that. See, Sankofa means remembering the past as you move ahead. You see, you should remember. At our community, we say you should have 5 generations of the history of your people before you at all time. You should remember where you came from. So when you're moving forward, you can't forget your culture that you came from. The problem is that a lot of our people, especially in the education arena, once they get quote unquote educated, Western education, they forget about where they came from, if they ever knew, or they don't learn about where they came from. Our children should understand today that not only, as you said, we have a stake in America, but if you read some of the books like Dr. Ivins and Van Sertler's book, he'll tell you that Africans were here first anyway.
Yeah.
It's not about them coming over. The Indians were here. It's like Africans really came to this part of the world a long time ago, and he validates it. And so our children probably would have a better sense of themselves, a better reason to get educated if they knew that this is your land. You know, you were the first civilization. You were the people that brought culture to the so-called Western culture now, and they've taken their culture and given it back to you, and you've forgotten about your own. So we have a lot of education to do, because education is nothing more than teaching culture.
And I think the first event, the one on Saturday at the Alice Art Center, is about the present day, how we can heal ourselves today. And so if anybody is interested in the present, the event at the Saturday at the Alice Art Center, we're bringing a lot of speakers to come and talk about ways that Africans have and can continue to heal themselves.
Right.
And I was just-
Excuse me, wait a second, before that, I want you to also mention, Aisha, how this is not just a once-a-year thing, that we're going to actually have healing workshops throughout the year.
Well,
You wanna talk about that?
that's our plan, is to keep this going on throughout the year, have events every 2 or 3 months that talk about some of these issues in depth.
You know, a healing process. It's going to take, you know, it's a process to heal yourself. I mean, if you have cancer, you don't just get over like this. It's a process, and we want to actually go through the process of healing ourselves. The Million Man March was a part of that process.
Yes.
MAAFA is part of that process, and we've got to keep it going. This new millennium, it's a new age even, and so there's a swing now toward healing from within, and the Africans have just got to, you know, get with that flow and take ourselves on, you know, to the new millennium, hopefully healed.
Well,
What is the process that you're describing? Because it's remembering the past as beginning, but what is the actual process that will get us back to where we need to be as a community?
I was just thinking at first we need to accept ourselves, because actually, you know, the Willie Lynch was that part of the process did divide us even further, but it started when we stepped onto that. Well, first when we were in the slave castle, because at that particular time, children were separated from their mothers, others never saw their families again, and people spoke different languages, and everyone was sort of like put together in this hull of the ship, and you might not know hardly anyone there. They might not speak your language, and then we came to this land where we didn't even know where we were, and your family's somewhere else, and then as the generations passed to where we are presently, we don't know where we come from in Africa, a lot of us. We don't have our own language. You know, we don't own any land. So, you know, that makes you feel kind of devastated.
Well, I wanted to, yeah, because I wanted to throw a point is that the Christian church, they commemorate the death of Christ, some of them every week. They take the blood, they take the bread, and they remember what Christ did for them. And I really believe, and this might sound terrible, I believe that God, as horrible as all those people died, God sent all of those people here that made it here And the ones who died, God knew they was going to die. So at this time, we as American Africans, if I can say it that way,
Yeah,
are supposed to be able to look back to the Africans that's over there and support them. But they don't want to have too much to do with us because we don't want to give back to them.
So,
And we're kind of
Let
still
me-
that
let me say
confused area.
so are you saying that God wanted it to happen? Wanted 100 million people to die?
Permitted it to happen.
Oh, permitted
Because I
that.
believe that God is
And-
sovereign. He did that to his Jewish people. So, and I believe that the people that came here, God knew they was going to die. He knew that some of us was going to sell some of us. And who was going to do it? And a lot of people can't accept that.
And I wanted to be clear that MAAFA is not a one denominational kind of thing. This is inclusive of all of us. Those of us who believe in Jah, those of us who believe in Allah, those of us who believe in Shiva, those of us who believe in Buddha. Whatever your background is, you still need to be a part of MAAFA. So it's not a religious thing. So don't
People of African descent.
people of African descent. That's what this is based on. There's no religious
Affiliation.
right. And so God, is almighty, and so when we talk about God, we have our own views about that.
That's right.
But one of the things that what we're talking about today is returning to our culture. The key part of our culture is called spirituality. It's not religion. It's spirituality. Now, religion is how you decide, how you interpret your spirituality. But now, one of the things that's consistent with African people is something called ritual. And you say, how do we get back to getting healed? There's a ritual. There's an African ritual. There's an African proverb for everything that ails you. You got to learn what it is. And a part of that is coming, accepting, and believing that healing is possible. So what we need to do basically is exercise and try to get involved and try to learn what are the proper rituals of our culture that will get us back to where we belong.
And that brings up a good point, is education, because we have to be educated about these rituals.
Exactly.
And right now, we're in a state of miseducation.
Exactly.
And so, what I want to know is, how can our children understand if we don't teach them? So, can
Someone said earlier, we must take charge of the education of our children, period. I realize that we're in a public school domain here, but now there's something about us, conducting other kinds of things when we have access to our children, conducting the kinds of things that's going to teach them their culture, teach them the relevancy of them getting an education, teach them everything that they need in terms of not only survive but to excel. Because our kids do not believe right now that most of our kids will say that if I make a C, I'm okay, or if I make a D, I'm okay. I got through the class. We must put back into them, each one of us, put back into them as much as we can about excellence.
I was
So
just
you're
thinking,
saying how?
for instance, I teach at Contra Costa College, and before that I taught at a college prep high school in Berkeley. The reason why I left there was because there were no black children in my classroom, and I thought, I'm expending all this energy and it's not going to come back to me. You know how you spend your money, and if you don't spend it in your community, then you never see it again? That's the same thing with our knowledge and our education and our cultural values. If, for instance, I'm a black teacher in, a public institution, however, the books I choose as the textbooks for my class, I choose them to reflect me as an African person. And it doesn't matter who's in my class. I'm teaching at Contra Costa College, so obviously I have black students there. And I teach at Laney College. Obviously I have black students in my class. I teach at the College of Alameda. Obviously I'd have probably black students in my class. So each one of us, the more we know, the more we should share. And that's how I feel about it, in the different classrooms we might be in. We meet somebody on, at a bus stop, or we sit down and have a conversation. We see a child doing something they shouldn't do, even if it's something like crossing against the light. I'll get out of my car and or talk to them, so you shouldn't do that. You might get killed or whatever. We shouldn't be afraid of one another, and we should share what we have.
And not be ashamed of who we are. And a lot of times the reason why we won't remember, like the MAAFA, is because we become Americans and we're ashamed of our nappy hair, and we've made ourselves institutionalized, and we prefer an American education instead of our culture.
The next question I want to ask is, because we're talking about the MAAFA and remembering our past, but one thing that is a part of our past is how Africans sold us into slavery also, and how our own were a part of us being enslaved. So that's part of the MAAFA, and that's part of remembering the past. So how do we deal with that? Because not only did they sell us off, but I don't know, if you correct me if I'm wrong,
Okay.
but I don't know of any Africans that came looking for us.
Oh no,
Could I add something to that though?
I want to say something to that too. You don't know if anybody came looking for us. Now you know do you have any children? If you don't, if somebody take your baby, you going looking for your baby.
That's
Don't
my
give
point
me that.
exactly.
They did look for us, and there were revolts. There were people who came and attacked the ships. Don't think that we just let people just take our people. Queen Nzinga fought.
Exactly.
Queen, what's her name? The one in Ghana fought.
Oh,
They
yeah.
didn't enslave all Queen Nzinga's people. She fought until Portuguese got tired and said, we're going to leave that Negro alone and go and find some other slaves, because they fought to the death. You know, sure, there was some that sold us, but it was because of white folks saying, well, we got these little trinkets we're going to give you, so go on and get them. And they did not know, the majority of us who sold us to the white man did not know that they were selling us across the ocean, because slavery has been something going through all through our history. But it's a different type of slavery.
Right.
They didn't know that they were selling us into the slave ships and coming across America. They didn't know that. They didn't know that. White men knew it, but they didn't know. That's the divide and conquer kind of thing
Exactly.
Willie Lynch come up with.
Exactly.
They was doing it back there in the slave ships. Divide and conquer has been going on since then, and it's still happening now. You know, you get in between two, as I'm going to say it, two Negroes, and you give one Negro more than you give the other Negro. The one you get a more gonna think he's uppity, and then the one who get less is gonna be real vindictive, and they're gonna be fighting. You know, I mean, look at what they did in Rwanda. You know, can you imagine the Hutus and the Hutus and the Tutsis?
Yeah.
Same people, they slashing each other up. The method of killing one another was to go like this. They slash this arm off, slash this arm off, then they cut your feet off, cut that feet off, then they cut this ear off, and then they cut that, and then they start slicing you. That was their mode of operation. Why? Because of the French going in there making the Tutsis think that they're more powerful or more better than the Hutus when they're related.
Could I add something? This is a favorite punchline of most whites to justify slavery and a few Negroes. For example, Henry Louis Gates did a special on television, and his major focus
Was on the Africans
Africans
selling
selling
Africans.
Africans. He
Yes.
went to one place in Ghana. I've been to Ghana many times. He went to one place in Ghana. He went to the Ashanti region, and this was Ghana, and this where some of the corrupt kings were involved in the slave trade. But now he didn't say that 3/4 of Ghana was not involved. I mean, the great majority of Ghana resisted when they could.
And Henry, this Gates guy was married to a white woman, so my thing was he was trying to impress her that the Negroes sold themselves too. So, you know, y'all ain't all whatever.
And he's also the chair of the department at Harvard.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
we
those
were.
are his masters.
But one,
Me and my daughter, we was in Ethiopia at the time. He came to film the segment in Ethiopia, and they gave us an invitation to come to the embassy to hang out with him. I was sick, but I wanted to go. I wanted to question him. What is your reason for doing this? But God didn't let me get there because I'm real verbal, and they might have wanted to put me out of the country because I would have asked him, what's your reason for doing this? You know, brother, are you going to do it from our perspective, or are you going to do it from a white folks' perspective?
You know, when I seen him before
I
that,
mean, we had to get off Henry Louis Gates, though,
but
because-
he doesn't let you question him when he comes and does public speaking, because he's the author of Africana
Right.
Encyclopedia.
That's true.
He won't let you ask him those questions. So really, I don't know where he's coming from, because
serving
But we
two
need
masters.
to. But the focus of the discussion is the MAAFA.
Exactly.
True.
And so remembering the past, and like we said, this is a part of the past that Africans sold us into slavery. So we need to deal with that also as part of the process.
Yeah.
well, one major part of the process why we remember the MAAFA and the people who sold the people is because one part of the healing is forgiving, not holding it against them because they thought they was doing the right thing for them, and knowing that America is an individualistic place. Well, the people who sold the Africans who sold the Africans thought they were doing the right thing for them. And the purpose of the MAAFA with us today is so that we can look back and say, even though they did this wrong, we won't hold it against them. We will forgive them. We don't want to forget it, because you can never forget it. But we won't hold it against them, and we'll move on and start healing for our younger babies, our children. So one of the purposes so that we can have some healing, some forgiving, because if you don't forgive your brother, then your Heavenly Father won't forgive you. So we believe that wholeheartedly, and one area of the MAAFA is so that we can start forgiving and not holding grudges against them and start the healing process, because without forgiving there is no healing.
Just to say one thing, that's not all of our position about forgiving and that kind of thing. My thing is that we're not going to concentrate on the Africans who sold each other. That's not how I don't even look at that.
And I think before you can forgive somebody for something, they got to acknowledge it and be responsible for what they did, and we all know that hasn't happened. And I think they brought up the thing about Henry Louis Gates Jr. You have black men teaching white folks and black folks, but this is our history. And when we do things like that, like this, the MAAFA, we're teaching ourselves this is what really happened. So anytime you see that kind of craziness on TV, we know that that's not the truth.
And there's another aspect
The whole truth and nothing but the truth.
that we need to understand is that when slavery came into existence in terms of the history of the world, it was when Africa was the weakest. It was because Africa for thousands, tens of thousands of years had been attacked from all sides. So it's really important that we as a people understand our total history. There's a book called Destruction of Black Civilization by Dr. Chancellor Williams that every African person on the face of it need to read, because see, Western culture tells you that this is when history started, like the 14th century. I mean, when the 14th century, there were how many African kingdoms had came and gone, and by that time had been attacked on all four sides, and they did become weak, and they did have to fight for themselves. They were cut off. They were isolated. So understand history in its totality rather than understanding Western history. I mean, know also that every discipline that you can find in the university today was brought to this earth by African folks, by Kemetic people. That our people has a history of excellence that goes for tens of thousands of years, not 3,000 or 2,000 years. We need to give our children a total understanding of history. There's a book called Christianity Before Christ. You should read that. Any book that you can get your hands on about your history, you need to pick it up and read it. That's why we can't have our young people being anti-education.
You know, I wouldn't go that far as to say every book, because like we just talked a whole bunch about Henry Louis Gates. You know what I'm saying? There's some faulty authors out there, but I want Aishah to have the last comment, and then gonna make a couple announcements about the MAAFA.
Yeah. Where it's going to be on Wednesday.
Okay. Again, I just wanted to invite everybody to the MAAFA. It's this coming Saturday, October 7th at the Alice Arts Center, and that's 1428 Alice Street in downtown Oakland. There's going to be spoken word, music, dance, spiritual health leaders, and much more. And then the MAAFA healing ceremony is Sunday, October 8th at the Ocean Beach in San Francisco, Fulton Street at the Great Highway, at sunrise around 6 a.m., 6:30. The number you can call for more information is 393-8296 or 540-7118. That's in the 510 area code. If you need information on more directions or carpooling or you need a ride, please give us a call.
You mentioned the film on Thursday.
Oh, and the film Sankofa is showing at the West Oakland Branch Library across from DeFermi Park on
18th and Adeline.
18th and Adeline.
And some of us are going to stay at the beach that night and do worshiping there, meditating and drumming all night to get the spirits up out of the ocean to be with us the whole time. So hopefully you can come. 232-3482. 540-7118 if you need information.
There will be carpools.
Carpools. We will never forget. We will never forget. We will never forget. We will never forget.
I just have one last announcement, and that is the second annual Holistic Health Conference. Don't forget about that. It's on October 7th on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. Sacramento City College. We learned a lot today, and we want to thank all of our guests and appreciate their time for being with us. Thank you.
Darkness no longer
We will never forget. We will never forget. We will never forget. We will never forget.
Where he ought to be. Somewhere in Georgia, scheming and shooting craps on his knees. Another victim born out here in the hood. And based on statistics, it really ain't all good. Welfare takes the tab, and then it can't sign, and it can't be seen. The family becomes a crime. The hunt is on, and brother, you're the prey.